Sharp and Hanley. It's Nick, it's Austin, it's Jimmy with you on your Tuesday. Cannot wait for all of Nebraska and beyond, Nebraska volleyball fans, college volleyball fans, just college athletics fans, to see another great piece from ESPN and the E60. And this one obviously is a little bit more hitting home for us, and it is There's No Place Like Nebraska, chronicling the 2023 season for the Nebraska volleyball team. I'm very happy to be joined here on the stream and on the show here with the directors, Jen Carson-Strauss and Maddie Runlett. First of all, good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, let's get into this. We had a chance to get a sneak peek of this last night, and I got to tell you, first of all, extremely well done. And I think with people that are anticipating the release of this, especially here in Nebraska, we think a big part of any type of documentary on the 2023 season would be the Nebraska Day, or the Volleyball Day in Nebraska, which has a small role in it. But I think what you guys did a fantastic job of telling is that was the beginning of what became such an amazing ride. So, Jen, I want to start with you. Just the experience of not only starting a season that way with that type of event, but wondering to yourself, okay, how does it go beyond this? How does it get better than that, kicking off the season the way that Nebraska did?
It's a great question, Nick. I mean, how do you go from a moment where you're rewriting history, 92,000 plus fans, and then that's just the jumping off point, right? I mean, that was probably one of the harder things. Maddie and I knew that that's where we had to start. There was no other place to start. Also, it would draw in an audience that is our more general viewer to make their jaws drop and want to stay in it for a longer duration. But the biggest complication, honestly, Nick, was that it felt like the end. Like the beginning felt like the end. So there was a lot of reworking and retuning and feedback that we got from our team to try to help that really feel more like a jumping off point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic just from beginning to end. I loved every minute. I'm excited for people to be able to watch this. But as you mentioned, you're trying to make this for a national audience. And obviously Nebraska volleyball fans are going to have a lot of fun with this. How did you pick and choose which stories to tell? And how did you determine what that full hour ended up looking like? There's just so much that happened over the course of that 2023 season.
Yeah, I can start, and Maddie, throw to you. We really liked the storyline that this was a team with no seniors. We wanted to tell the story of a team who's expected to be at the top of the mountain, but this was a year where it maybe felt like more of an underdog role than most other Nebraska teams. And so in telling a story, we really wanted to be diverse with our, we call them characters, they're players, they're human beings, but we wanted the hometown. We wanted the hometown kid in Rebecca Alec. We wanted the big transfer in Merritt Beeson, who's sort of the mama bear of the team. We needed Lexi Rodriguez, who is that veteran captain. And we wanted a freshman, and who better than Harper Murray, who is, came in as the National Gatorade Player of the Year, the #1 recruit in the nation. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were diverse in who we were talking to. And then Maddie, obviously, we spoke to other people as well from the coaching staff.
Yeah, for sure. We wanted to, obviously, Coach Cook is the obvious to speak to, but being able to speak to former players and members of the staff as well, and get a couple of tidbits from just locals and hear, from their perspective. But I think the beauty is, because we were there for the full year, you get a little bit of everyone, even though we did have those main characters that we were, having the voices be heard.
Guys, following this program, and you guys have been around the ESPN director's role, and Maddie, I know you joined in 2020 and working in platforms like Outside the Lines, a little NHL as well. When you see the way that culture is in a lot of different sports, and Maddie, I'll start with you on this one, because I think the fact that you've got this championship culture and everybody assumes that these players at times, whether it's college players or pro players, are essential professionals that they know when they wake up, they've got a job to do. They're going to do that job, and really nothing can rattle them. But what I really liked about this one is you got a chance to see, even with the success and how much this group is embraced by a fan base, that there truly is those personal struggles. Obviously, we saw with Harper Murray, but also just kind of dealing with the simple life of being not simple life, but just the challenges of being a student athlete, but in a place in a fishbowl like this here in Nebraska.
Yeah, I think from the start, what we really knew is that we wanted to give like a raw look at this team and just be honest. They're fierce competitors, and we want to show them in that light, but also get to the core of them as human beings. And, credit to Jen. She was a wonderful interviewer. And really, we got that trust with the team. So they bought into the story that we were trying to tell. So you get to see that look from them.
When the season continued to unroll and you guys had just so much access to the team, we had heard it from the head coach, John Cook, about how excited he was for this to come out. And the team had a special preview a week ago or so. What was maybe that pinnacle moment for you as the just production team? Was there a point in the season in which you went, oh, we've got something pretty good here? And was it past volleyball day? Was it just when that started? Or when was that moment for you?
It's hard. I feel like you're super hard on yourself as you're going through the process. And that's what creatives do, right? Even when you have it, you're kind of like, is this good? Do we have it? You're constantly questioning yourself, even as it's already finished. And, Maddie and I are still like, did we do everything? Did we do everything right? Could we have done more? It's so hard to pack everything into an hour. That was a conversation that we had a lot with Coach Cook, is he would constantly say, how are you going to get this into an hour? And Maddie and I would say, we have no idea. And so we did our best with it. But, after the season unfolds, I think is really, when they do lose, and we did get more actual access with them after the season, I think that's when they were able to decompress a little bit and really reflect on the season that was and sit with it. And you actually see like how that impacted them and how it impacted the coaching staff. I think that's when we really were like, okay, this was an incredible season, but like you both mentioned, it's about so much more than just the season and a volleyball team who plays volleyball on the court. It's very much an off the court story.
Oh, and Jen, you have an interesting perspective as well as being a former college soccer player. Yeah, I guess you did kick a soccer ball. Soccer player at Pepperdine. So at some point, and maybe this gets into the Final Four, do you find yourself, you're doing a job, but do you find yourself genuinely rooting and becoming a fan of this team?
Absolutely. I've joked, Maddie and I both joked that we're, we have our own alma maters, but we're Husker fans now, because you do get so close to these people and to the program and to the incredible staff who helped us. This is not possible without the athletic department and the SID, and everybody had to buy in. The people who helped us film things when we couldn't be there. And so when you have that level of dedication, I think it naturally makes you want to be a fan. You obviously have to still walk that line of, journalistic integrity throughout. And, like you mentioned, Austin, you're still serving a general audience. But yeah, you definitely get close to them and get close to the team.
How tough was that in just balancing that Nebraska love? You knew that the state is going to come out and watch this episode. They're going to absorb any content that comes out on Husker volleyball, but making it for a general audience, is that tough to balance that? Did you lean one way more than the other?
I think so. And Maddie, I'll let you hop in here too, but there were, we get a lot of feedback from a lot of different parts of the company. It was, volleyball has had incredible ratings this year, but there are people who haven't consumed volleyball at all. So there were like, do we need to explain volleyball? How far back into the history do we need to go? It was really important to us that we established, what Terry Pettit had built and how it became what it was. And that this wasn't just 92,000 fans just didn't show up on August 30th, 2023. This was something that was years and decades in the making.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is there were little tidbits that, we had spoken to so many Nebraskans throughout this project, like both in Nebraska, but also throughout ESPN. And, we had some things in the edit that were like, this will be great for Nebraskans that, like, you know, once we're screening it for a general audience, they're like, maybe you don't need this. And that's, I think, you know, because we're so close to the story, it just is the nature of things.
We're talking to Jen Carson Strauss and Maddie Rundlet of ESPN, the E60 documentary, There Is No Place Like Nebraska. It will air on Sunday, August 25th. Going to be awesome. We know everyone's going to like it. Maddie, I want to ask you this, because what I found very cool, and we have access to this program on a weekly basis. We have access to hearing from Coach Cook, from hearing from the players, Merritt Beeson, from Rebecca Alec, from Harper Murray, Lainey Choboy. I mean, you name it. And they're rock stars here. You guys have a chance to, you know, like Jen mentioned, gets to ask the questions. But Maddie, when you're just taking in all the content from them and you're seeing the human element of that, is that, in your opinion, what really drives a documentary home, where you're able to essentially humanize people? Kind of going back to what I said about, we always think of them as professionals or robots because they just win so much, that you can humanize what they're going through it, and that's a success with what you guys do?
Yeah, I think so. I think the big thing we always emphasize is trust, and like having that trust that they can put their walls down and be honest with us and be their true authentic selves, I think is what, you know, we try to get to the core here. And I think that's when you're in the audience, I know, like, when I'm watching documentaries, I want to feel the human element with the people, and I want to feel some sort of connection. And I think, you know, I'm very grateful with how they were so open with us, and that, you know, it helped us as we were telling our stories, but also helped us get to know them as people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we're obviously super excited to show this to our audience who doesn't have any knowledge about the Huskers, and hopefully make them fans. But I think there's an element that Maddie and I are really excited about for the diehards, because as a diehard, you think that you know everything, right? You think you know everything about these players because you follow them on Instagram and you follow their TikToks and you've watched every interview. But our hope is, Nick, to humanize them and to show that they aren't just performers. It's beyond the wins and losses. They are human beings. And hopefully this documentary can do that.
Getting that preview of the documentary yesterday, just being able to watch it and everything, it looked like you had as much as you needed for access, and you had pretty much every story that you wanted to tell. It was fantastically written and well put together. Was there a story or something that was left on the cutting room floor you wish you had a little bit more time for? Was there something that you wish you might have been able to get more access in? Was there anything that was left that you feel like maybe you wanted to share one more story if you had 2 or 3 more minutes?
I know for us, there's a number of them. I mean, we sat down with Coach Cook for about 5 hours. There's a lot more there about his backstory. For me, and I know, Maddie, you have your own, but for me, even as much as we got with Harper Murray, there's a lot more there. There's a lot more that we weren't able to dive into because this wasn't the Harper Murray documentary, even though she is very prominent in the documentary. And so Liz Merrill of ESPN is actually doing a companion story that's really going to dive even further into what was on the cutting room floor, just because Maddie and I really felt strongly about the fact that we had so much more there related to Harper, related to her mental health, in a way that she was incredibly honest about. And so we wanted people to be able to experience that. And so there is going to be a companion story coming out from Liz Merrill that dives even further into Harper Murray.
Yeah. And then on my end, obviously, we have Rebecca as kind of the voice of the hometown girl. But we had also spoken, as you saw, with her mother and as well her brother Josiah, and just getting into that family dynamic. And they're just such an interesting and colorful family. And I just really enjoyed them as people. So would have loved to have more of them.
I know most people, and again, thank you guys so much for your time. We'll wrap with this. And I know there's so much that doing this project, you're taking in some very unique environments, starting with Volleyball Day in Nebraska. But I love how you built up the 1 versus 2, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Lincoln. We all remember that. I love how it's It's just mentioned that there was a football game that a lot of us, there were a lot of us that were more excited about what was taking place that night than the Nebraska Northwestern game, but also then that moment in Iowa City. What was your guys' favorite moment in covering this team if it wasn't volleyball day in Nebraska?
Jen, I'll start. I would say that 1 and 2 game, I actually got to be on the ground for that. So, the interviews in the bar, just being, in the corner by the broadcast booth, just watching it. I think that for me was like, wow, this is a really cool, amazing story. So that was my favorite probably.
Iowa, actually. I think a lot of people, when they're watching this, are like, why is Iowa in here? We even had some people that had screened it initially who are from Nebraska and have been covering the team, and they were like, why is Iowa in here? And then it wasn't until they're actually, you don't expect anything out of that moment. But for some reason, the scenes in the locker room after that just kind of, for me, like emotionally punched me in the gut, because you've been with them already for 3/4 of the film at that point. And so the fact that it had been 6 years, the fact that it meant so much to them that they had accomplished that, Coach Cook getting emotional in the locker room with the players, that one hits me in the feels every time.
You said you're Husker fans now, so they're number 2 in the country in the preseason. Are you going to be watching all their games and their matches? What does it look like for your Husker fandom moving into 2024 now?
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking with Coach Cook about coming out to some games without cameras. It'll be nice to just consume it without having to actually cover it. So, yeah, for sure.
Guys, a job well done. We cannot wait for all of Husker Nation and beyond to see this E60 on Sunday, August 25th. There's no place like Nebraska. The directors, Jen Carson Strauss and Maddie Runlett. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time. Again, fantastic work. We'll be watching this probably several more times as well, but thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.